Alright, let's see what you got, Alec.
Sparkles, sparkles, sparkles. Hey, AvatarAidan, I just have one question to ask you. Why aren't you doing a Thomas and the Magical Railroad retrospective? Well, I mean, come on. Your Thomas the Tank Engine Classic Years retrospective kind of did pretty well on your channel. Like, now it's your 4th most popular video.
I mean, it's my 5th most popular video, but hey, you know, I'm not counting.
Like, come on, dude. So many people have nostalgic memories of it, and then watch it again when they're adults and realize it wasn't all that good to begin with, but it was such a fun part of their childhood. You gotta milk that Thomas the Tank Engine cow while you still can. But hey, what do I know? I'm only looking at the Thomas community from the outside looking in. Sparkles, sparkles, sparkles.
You have 9 new messages.
Where are all these messages coming from?
Yo, Aiden, congrats on the subs, by the way. Anyways, I was scrolling through some old Too Many Movies episodes, and it got me thinking. Considering how you talked about 7 seasons worth of Thomas, I'm curious, why didn't you talk about the Magic Railroad?
Aiden, you talked about seasons 1 through 7, but not the movie Magic Railroad. What gives?
It would have been better if you talked about the Magic Railroad in between Season 5 and Season 6. So why now?
Is there any particular reason you didn't talk about Thomas and the Magic Railroad?
Come on, Aiden, where's the Thomas and the Magic Railroad retrospective? We need the sparkle, damn it!
You need to talk about the movie with the sparkle line, dude.
You forgot Jack in the Pack.
And
Magic Railroad.
You know what? I'll just do it. Why not? I'll just do it. I'll just review Magic Railroad right here, right now. Motherfucker! There are many movies from childhood that I still think about to this day. The classics like Monsters Incorporated, Lilo and Stitch, and Mulan. There are also a bunch of movies that were really bad like Shark Tale, Turbo, and Planet 51. But there has been no childhood movie that has made me feel divided like Thomas and the Magic Railroad.
Hello, I'm Mr. Conductor. And I'm going to tell you a story about trains, folks far apart, and the Magic Railroad that brought them together.
This is a weird movie to talk about with me. I wasn't born when the movie came out in theaters, but I was able to watch it at a pretty young age, because this movie was in bargain bins for ages back then. And even to this day, go to your local Target and you might find a DVD of the movie in the clearance bin. So I was very little when I watched this movie as a kid. And I did not stop watching it till I got a bit older. I remember whenever my brother would watch this movie as a kid, he would get nightmares from Diesel 10, and I still remember those times very well. Part of me is a little evil. My nostalgia for this movie is on par with the show as a whole, and some of the other Thomas movies that are out there. But when I was a teenager and rewatched this movie, something changed that day. I realized that this movie that I grew up loving was actually not that good. I remember back then, I would say that Magic Railroad was worse than Day of the Diesels and Misty Island Rescue after the rewatch, but we will get to those movies in a later video. Over the years, I never really had a solid stance on this movie. I'd either say it was horrendous or it was an okay movie, but it never really was something I could make a solid stance on. But today will be different. Now that we have talked about the classic era of the show and the ups and downs it faced for the past nearly 2 decades it was on the air, I think it is better time to talk about the movie that came out during that time period of the show's history. I will go into the stuff I didn't like in the movie, the stuff I liked in the movie, my general thoughts on the movie, and what happened after the movie was released to the public. Just so you all know before we get into it, I will not be talking about the work print and some of the general behind the scenes stuff about this movie. Instead, I will tell you to go check out the Unlucky Tug's second video on Magic Railroad, where it goes into all the behind the scenes stuff, cut stuff, early ideas, and all that stuff. A very interesting piece to watch and made me respect the movie even more. This is a video on Thomas and the Magic Railroad, the first blunder in the franchise's history. Now, let's start with the problems this movie has, and there's no better way to start this part of the video than with a plot summary. This is going to be a long one, strap yourselves in. The plot of this movie is that while the engines are working as per usual on the island of Sodor, Sir Topham Hatt is on holiday with his family and asks Mr. Conductor from Shining Time Station, who is from another dimension, to come and look after the railway while he is gone. Mr. Conductor is part of a magical family of magic people who are basically guardians of Sodor and this gold dust that they use to travel between the real world and Sodor. While he is on Sodor, he loses his gold dust, so he must go out and find some more by figuring out where the lost magical engine is. He also enlists the help of his cousin Junior to bring him some more gold dust while he figures out how to get more on Sodor. Keep in mind that this is the first plot line of the movie, and it gets worse from here. The second plot line of the movie is that there is a girl named Lily who is traveling to Muffled Mountain to visit her estranged grandfather named Burnett Stone. She gets lost on the way and ends up at Shining Time Station, where she meets up with Junior. Burnett Stone is the guardian of the lost magical engine, who is named Lady. The reason Lady is important is because she gives life to all the engines on Sodor and is the source of all the gold dust. All because she runs the line of track that is the bridge between the real world and Sodor called the Magic Railroad. Kinda weird they don't call it railway, but we can get to that later. Lady crashed while trying to escape from Diesel 10 a long time ago. Because of this, there is no gold dust to be made, and the Magic Railroad looks like an abandoned garden. Burnett has spent his entire life trying to figure out how to make Lady run. With the help of Lily, they are able to make her run again. The Magic Railroad is alive, and they are able to make gold dust. The third and final plot line of this movie is that there is an evil Diesel on Sodor named Diesel 10, whose goal throughout the movie is to try and find Lady and destroy her once and for all. If he does that, it means that the engines would die and the Magic Railroad will be gone forever. This is the plot of this movie, and the best way to describe the plot is that it is the most confusing and jumbled story I've seen in a movie. One of the biggest things about this movie that doesn't work whatsoever is that it doesn't feel focused. I think telling you all the plot of the movie can show you that, but it's even worse when you watch the whole thing. It makes the pacing of the movie off-putting, since we will go from one scene that focuses on one subplot to another subplot, or go to a scene that has no reasons to exist whatsoever. There are also some things in this movie that aren't explained whatsoever or raises more questions than anything. It doesn't really help that Thomas is barely in this movie. When I was reading that plot summary, I did not mention Thomas once in that paragraph, because he is basically irrelevant in this movie and has nothing to do in the plot. The fact Thomas is not the main focus of this movie is always one that perplexes me. There is a video by ThomasFan261 where it is the movie, but it only has the parts where Thomas is on screen. The runtime for this video is 11 minutes and 49 seconds. The runtime for the movie is 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 55 seconds. So if you do some simple math, the movie has Thomas on screen for 14% of the movie's runtime. Now, disregarding the fact that this movie should have been about Thomas, that is just not enough Thomas in the movie. It gives the vibe that Thomas wasn't originally gonna be in the movie, and it's even worse in the work print, where Thomas doesn't show up till like a few minutes in the movie. That is just bizarre the more you think about it. He does some things in the plot of the movie, but it more so feels like it's by chance. Like Thomas bumped the coal car into the Magic Railroad, which leads to them being able to run Lady later in the movie. Thomas also helps get Lily back to the railroad, but is then quickly forgotten about for a good chunk of the runtime. It's like they need Thomas to be significant in the movie by any means necessary so that they can use him as advertising, but in the end, it feels like they didn't go the full mile with it. Now let's get into the human characters, where they are both a low light and a highlight. The first human character that is of major focus is Mr. Conductor, played by Alec Baldwin. Now, the acting from Alec Baldwin is too good for this movie. He has this energy about him that just can't help but make me smile.
Where were you?
He is also the only one that makes rational decisions aside from his treatment of gold dust. You said you were low on gold dust and you use it like all the fucking time. Of course you ran out. Another thing about Mr. Conductor is that he talks to the camera like he is talking to the kids in the theater.
Did you put all this here for me? But you must have known that I was coming. How kind of you.
Which is a little weird given that he is also the narrator for this movie. But other than that, I don't mind Mr. Conductor in this movie. The next major character of this movie is Burnett Stone, played by the late Peter Fonda. The acting from Peter Fonda is not all that good. It feels like he is trying to go for this person who is never happy all the time and is moping 24/7.
Made her go too fast. then he crashed her. And I brought her here. I tried my best to fix her up, but I've never been able to.
I wouldn't call Burnett Stone the dumbest character in the movie, but he is trying so hard to take that spot. He lets Lily just go to Shining Time Station unsupervised and acts like he is perfectly okay when Lily goes missing for the night.
It's okay, Patch. We'll find her.
And it's even worse when she does come back.
Oh, Lily. I'm so glad to see you.
What is in your brain? The next major character in the movie is Lily, played by former actress Mara Wilson. Now, the acting she did is not bad whatsoever. It's not groundbreaking, but for a child, it's not that bad and it could be worse.
Junior said there used to be an engine that traveled on the Magic Railroad. And if only we could find that, we could still head back to Shining Time.
Now, Lily is probably the second dumbest character in the movie. She just does something in this movie that makes no sense whatsoever. She climbs up a fire escape, which just makes no logical sense whatsoever. She then gets advice from a dog in the train station to tell her which way her train goes.
I don't suppose you know where track 3 is, do you? You do? Is it that one? So why not?
And this is probably the dumbest one. When she is in Shining Time Station, she asks Junior if she can join him, and she also asks the dog if that's okay. Like, girl, is stranger danger a thing for you? Because the last thing I would be doing is asking a stranger who was like probably an inch tall if I can join them to this magical world. It's also kind of weird that after going to Sodor, she's smart by figuring out the mystery with the Magic Railroad and the gold dust shortage. Just the weird thing with the script, it makes it feel like Lily was meant to be the main character of the movie. The final major character of the movie is Junior, played by Michael E. Rogers. Michael E. Rogers' performance is my favorite in this movie. He has the energy to him that makes him an entertaining watch. It also helps that he's just a fun character to watch.
See, Junior. Did I drop some sunglasses when I came in here?
I don't know.
Oh, well. I might as well use some more of this stuff. See you, Lily.
There is some great stuff with him in this movie. Him and Lily talking for the first time, his banter with Thomas when they reach Sodor.
Now, don't look so surprised. I know you haven't seen me since...
You stuffed party poppers down my funnel.
Hey, we had a laugh.
You did.
And his dynamic with Mr. Conductor is unrivaled.
Hey, guys, what's up? Enjoying the sun?
No, Junior, I am not. As a matter of fact, I just landed here after escaping a heavy metal monster. Junior, where have you been?
Junior is the best character in the movie, and I would not change him whatsoever. Another good thing I will say is that it is cool to see that the actors who worked on this movie have nothing but nice things to say about the making of this movie. It is pretty cool that they got Didi Khan to play Stacey Jones in this movie, since she was Stacey Jones in the show. But I would still say that the humans are not the highlight of this movie, which doesn't help when they are 86% of this movie. I also think one of the biggest problems with this movie is that it is alienating to a global audience. What I mean by this is that Thomas and the Magic Railroad feels like it was meant to cater more to the American audience than anything. Now, I am from America, so seeing them say stuff like Sir Topham Hatt and Railroad is not out of the ordinary for me. But for someone who would be watching this movie in English or Japan, the other two massive markets for Thomas, it would be alienating to not hear the way they are used to hearing them say stuff like Fat Controller and Railway. But the biggest thing that alienates this movie is that it introduces Shining Time Station. Now, for this part, we will need context. After season 2 of the show, Britt Allcroft was bringing Thomas to other places in the world. When Thomas came to the US in 1989, it was via a variety show called Shining Time Station that released episodes on PBS. The show was about people working at a train station and a magical little man called Mr. Conductor, who was played by Ringo and then by George Carlin, who lived in the station and would tell stories to kids about Thomas.
Do you have storms on the island of Sodor?
As a matter of fact, Percy got caught in an awful storm once.
I don't think I want to hear this right now.
Well, that's too bad, because the storm passed.
It did?
And the story ends happily, as you'd have found out. But I'll save it for some other time.
Oh, no, tell it now.
No, you've had enough storms for one day.
Please.
Well, you sure? Right then. Every summer, the island of Sodor is very busy.
Shining Time Station was a very successful show, but it was clear that Thomas was the only reason why kids were watching it. So after 6 years of being on TV, the show ended. Now the point of the history is because not only do I think that this is an interesting piece of Thomas's history, but the fact that Shining Time Station was only in the United States. Since this movie was going to be in the other big markets for Thomas, it's weird that the decision to make the movie center around Shining Time Station is very weird. I wonder if Britt Allcroft knew what she was doing when she was making these decisions. But then again, she made one of the biggest fucks-ups with this movie with the conception alone. Now, I think all Thomas fans watching this are expecting this next point to be obvious since it's been talked about to hell and back. But I gotta say it for the people in the back who don't get it. Yeah, you guys in the back. The worst thing about this movie is the magic element, because it misses the point of the original show. One of the main appeals of Thomas's original run was that it was a show that was grounded in realism. The show never did anything cartoony or out of pocket. It was written like these trains were actual trains that needed people to control them. Whenever there was a runaway or a situation that caused an accident, it was treated seriously. Really, the only thing that was unrealistic was that the trains all had faces. These are some of the few reasons that I believe makes the original run of Thomas a show that will stand the test of time. But this movie came and lied to its audience with the fucking title alone. This movie explains to us that the engines are only alive because they have this magic engine who lives in another dimension who gives them all life. That alone can be enough of a reason to tell you that it ruined the main draw of the show. But then we get hit with another thing, which is that Sodor is in another dimension that is separate from the real world. Also, there are no drivers in the engine cabs, so these engines are driving themselves, when it was proven in the show 4 years before this that engines needed their drivers to move whatsoever. Animals can talk to humans, tumbleweeds can talk to anyone, and the movie is very cartoony in tone. What makes this situation worse than it should be is that it can all be explained away with one word, which is magic. Engines are alive because of magic. Objects and animals can talk in this world because of magic. Sodor isn't a real place, it can only be accessed via magic. I am positive that before this movie, kids just thought of Sodor as a real place we can visit, but this movie shattered that reality for them because of magic. What makes this even more weird is that this was by the same people who made the gosh dang show to begin with. Part of me wonders if Britt Allcroft really knew what she was doing when working on this movie, when she made these decisions to begin with. Now, I said a lot of things about this movie that are not good, and I think Thomas fans know that this movie is not good and ruined the franchise. But I will say that there are things in this movie that are actually pretty good. Even when a Thomas product is bad, there are things in the dark that could glow brighter than ever. The first thing I want to talk about is that the movie looks great. Now, even though the film has terrible pacing with all the going back and forth with the plot lines, the movie still has some stellar things in terms of the production. I love how they handled the Magic Railroad in this movie. They used several matte paintings and layered them on top of each other. CGI was used sparingly in the movie, with it mostly being in the Magic Railroad. And when Thomas is in the real world, now CGI has this tendency to age fast since the progression of technology goes through so much in a short time. And while there is some of that with how the engines look in the Magic Railroad, the shot of Thomas will always be weird to me. Even as a kid, I thought it was weird. But they used CGI to handle the lighting in the Magic Railroad, and I think they did a fantastic job doing it. I also think that the green screening is quite impressive in this movie. There are many shots in this movie where I had to take another look to make sure that it was actually green screened. Real people and Thomas is not what I want from this franchise, but when the humans don't look out of place, thanks to the green screening, I can't be all that mad. The human scenes are nothing to make a big deal about, but the Thomas shots are definitely gonna stand out. Watching it, you could tell that it was made by the cast who worked on Thomas. Helps that David Mitton worked on the model work. The colorful sets that look so big and grand and perfectly look like English countrysides just sell the world that the original run of the show worked so well with. It's a treat for the eyes. I also think that all the uses of CGI in this movie are pretty impressive for 2000. Another thing that I really like about this movie that seems pretty small is that I think the score for the movie slaps so hard. The music in Thomas has always been a highlight. It is one of the few things about the franchise that are consistent, but I think that Magic Railroad is one of the best scores in the Thomas franchise. The composer for the movie was Hummy Man, known for such classics as Robin Hood Men in Tights. I wish I was kidding right now. One of the things I love about the score in this movie is that it is all mostly original, but every now and again you will hear melodies and pieces of the original Thomas score in this movie. The best piece to describe this is the opening song of the movie. It starts all original, and then after the title drop, we then get the first piece of original Thomas music. I love that the Thomas theme plays when they are going through the Magic Railroad. It just feels so magical. I also can't talk about the score without mentioning this movie's version of Really Useful Engine. Out of the 3 versions of this song that has come out, I think this one is my favorite version to listen to.
He's a really useful engine, you know. All the other engines, they'll tell you so. He huffs and puffs and whistles, rushing to and fro. He's the really useful engine we adore.
Homie Man clearly put a lot of effort into the score of this movie. He spoke fondly of working on this movie, and he has a deep respect for the vision Britt Elcroft had for this movie, and that he loved that the show didn't play down to kids, so the score should reflect that. I definitely recommend listening to the score of the movie on its own. I've been doing this while working on this video, and it still makes me shed a tear every now and again. One thing I also love about this movie is that the Thomas stuff feels right. I was afraid when revisiting this movie that the Thomas stuff was gonna be wrong, but when the Thomas stuff is the focus, it feels like the show came to the big screen. The writing for the train stuff is great, with the classic banter we expect with the show, like with Thomas and James at the beginning of the movie.
You weren't concentrating, Thomas. Lucky for you that the buffers were there.
That's what buffers are for, to stop engines from crashing. What are you doing in the sheds, James?
And it helps that the characters feel in character in this movie. James is as vain as always.
I was naughty and Sir Topham Hatt told me to think about all the ways I can be really useful. Then I can come out again.
Gordon is a pompous asshole, like always.
You, Thomas, are small. Small, 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 teeny, weeny, weeny. And I'm a big blue engine who knows everything.
Bossy sprockets!
Henry gets agitated, but is also shown to be calmer than Gordon and James.
Of an engine whose magic makes her more powerful than Diesel will ever be. That's why he wants to find her.
Percy is happy-go-lucky, but gets scared pretty easily. Toby is still the wise, cheerful engine with some spunk to him that we love.
Oh, Diesel won't bother with an old engine like me. He thinks I'm really useless.
And finally, we have Thomas. Thomas in this movie, I was not a big fan of on the revisit, but thinking about it with time, I do think that Thomas is well characterized in this movie. The voices for the characters I think were also pretty good in this movie. Thomas sounds a bit too childish for my liking, though that might be because of the fact I still have Martin Sherman in my head after watching Blue Mountain Mystery recently, but the voice by Eddie Glenn does a good job with the character. There are voice performances by Neil Crone as Gordon, Kevin Frank as Henry, and Linda Bellington are all great, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. But I think my favorite voice performance in the movie regarding the engines is Colm 4 as Toby. The way he delivers the voice for Toby just perfectly fits the character and is much better than the other voices you would get in the CGI series.
I've got to delay him. I've got to distract him.
The only voice performance I am iffy on in this movie is James. Susan Roman's voice for James just feels off to me. He sounds too feminine, if that makes sense. Here's a clip.
Diesel says red is a very tiring color, but Mr. C. Red looks so nice against the snow. It's not me, is it?
I hope you understand what I mean by that. I would have preferred if they got a male actor to play James, but I am not losing my mind over this. Now, we can't talk about Magic Railroad without talking about one of the defining things about it, and that's Diesel 10.
Get out of my way! I have unfinished business here, and I want to finish it fast! The Diesel 10's back!
Diesel 10 is one of the best parts of this movie. Now, looking at his design, you could tell that he is somewhat out of place when you compare him to the other characters in the show from the previous seasons and seasons that would come later as well. But honestly, I don't really mind it, cause Diesel 10 in this movie is low-key a fun character to watch in action. One of the things I love about him is that to the engines, he's not really a threat whatsoever. He's kind of a joke to them.
I know that's gonna ruin my facial.
But when he wants to be serious or mad, he can be a real threat. One of my favorite moments in the movie is when James and Junior are cornered by him in the smelter shed. The atmosphere here is on point, and he slowly pushes James and Junior closer to the edge, to their doom.
That's it!
I think part of the reason I love Diesel 10 in this movie is the actor's performance for him. He is voiced by Neil Crone, and he did a great job with him. He gave the character this voice that can work with any emotion, which is why I love Diesel 10 in this movie. He sells the moments when he is mad, and he sells the moments when he is being a little goof or jokey.
Pinchy, you captured the real me. I mean, that's beautiful. I could cry. Hello, Twinkle Toes. I got a plan, and you're not in it.
Some of my favorite villains in media are characters who can be both a threat to the main characters while also being fun to watch. I wouldn't put Diesel 10 with the likes of Bill Cipher or Aku, but he is still one of those types of villains nonetheless. It's kind of funny to me that after this movie, they decided to basically disregard everything from it. But Diesel 10 came back in Calling All Engines, Day of the Diesels, and even got an episode in season 17. I think that alone shows how popular Diesel 10 was and what kind of legacy he left with the show. Even with all of the problems this movie has, it definitely shows that there were some things that were thought out when making this movie, and it will definitely get kids to fit through it perfectly fine. And that's the end of all I have to say for this movie. Even with the things that I praised with this movie, from the production, the Thomas stuff, the score, and Diesel 10, there are many things in it that are bad. Most of the human characters, the messy plot, the fact there was less than 20% of Thomas stuff in it, and the fact that the movie just missed the point of what Thomas was to begin with. Now, this may just be a bad kids movie, and one bad movie in a franchise, but after this movie, the show was never the same. I purposefully kept this out of the classic era video for a reason, and it was for this video. The aftermath of Thomas and the Magic Railroad was not bright whatsoever. The movie flopped critically and financially. General audiences thought the movie was too confusing, and the box office showed that, with it barely breaking even, and even then, it's still not enough. Even the home media market wasn't nice to Magic Railroad, since you could find DVDs of it from 2000 rotting in clearance bins to this day. Now, the one market that made money back was definitely the merchandise. Thomas's toy market was always one of its strongest markets until the toys became shit in 2014, but we're not going to talk about that. There is one thing this movie did that you can't deny. The movie did mass a bigger global audience, which is strange since this movie is alienating in many ways for anyone outside the US. But I would say that this was a detriment to the show more than a good thing. After the reception of the movie was not well received, Britt Allcroft was forced to step down from her own company. She would continue on as the executive producer for season 6, having little input on the new stories and being a creative consultant on season 7 before leaving the show. David Mitton would stay as director for season 6 and 7 while also being a script consultant. He became frustrated with Hit Entertainment's involvement with season 7, that after he finished work on season 7, he left the show for good. And we also have a testimony by one of the then writers of the show that season 6's writing process was troubled, with them hiring and having scripts done 2 weeks before filming started. The biggest problem following this movie was that the higher-ups had one goal in mind with the franchise, which was to turn out content as much as possible. Following the movie, a new season of Thomas was released every year starting in 2002 and ending in 2020, which led to new writers being brought onto the show. Almost all the legacy staff left after season 7 was done being filmed, and all of the future Thomas content was helmed by Hit Entertainment, which led to a new format of the show that is looked down upon by Thomas fans, even to this day. We could talk about Hit Entertainment in more detail when I get to the Hit era video, but the point is that I believe that everything that was conceptualized about Magic Railroad caused all of this, and it never truly recovered. We got pretty close with the Brenner era, where it was clear they put so much effort into making the show what it used to be, but it never truly recovered. I hope that explains it all pretty well. It was pretty fun writing this script and talking about a movie again. Next time when we talk about Thomas, we will go into the spin-off show, Jack in the Pack, which I am personally very excited to talk about. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a nice day.
And so we've come to the happy end of our story, and it's time for all of us to go home. Just like Thomas.
I want to give some shoutouts for this video. Since I got 1,000 subscribers after releasing the Mega Man X7 video, I decided to make this video the 1,000 subscriber special, so I wanted to bring in friends for this video. So I have to shout out my friends who appeared in the opening skit. Alec from the SQG review show, Yen Sid, Olivia Mendel, Massman, Iggy Minuous, Bad Clips, Citizen How, and Platinum. I wanted to do something fun for the video, and I thought a skit would be perfect, and I asked them if they wanted to be in it, and they said yes and hand me the audio, and I think they all nailed it. Their channels will be in the description, and I thank you all for watching my videos on my interests, and I hope you are excited to see more from this channel. That is all I have to say, and don't forget that I have socials in the description as well. Anyway, have a nice day.